Well, welcome everyone. I'm Lindsay Keeler. I'm the Executive Director and CEO of UST New England. We're really thrilled to have you all here to learn more on how you can unlock an amazing set of resources available from our UST national partner, but also here within UST New England. And we do know we have some folks from outside of New England. Glad to have you. There are 17 sections. You're welcome to reach out to your section for any localized resources available. And if you're not sure who to contact, the UST New England or national team, Lauren Parr is happy to support you to get in touch with the right person. So today we'll be talking about tennis venue services, and we have a powerhouse lineup, not intentional, but very well happy to have during Women's History Month, 4 amazing accomplished women from UST National as well as here within New England. Lauren, if you want to go to the next slide. Oh, you can go up a few, and I may have you go back. Go to the slide with our 4.
Oh,
I think I'm moving things around. Thanks, Lauren.
which one did you want me to go back to?
Number 4.
Number 4. Awesome.
Oop, and one more. Thanks. Perfect. Here we are. So today we have Lauren Parr, who is the manager of tennis venue services from UST National. Just an amazing advocate for tennis across the country and has been supporting hundreds, thousands of projects in her time at UST National. So we're thrilled to have her here and her expertise, and she'll guide you through all of the eligibility and questions that came in advance around engaging with tennis venue services. And then we also have Sarah Wishart, our Director of Recreation and Facilities here with UST New England, just a wealth of knowledge leading our recreational programs, including our signature program, Tennis in the Parks. We also have some fellow New England team members on this call. I know I saw Eric and some other names pop on, and she'll share a little bit more around New England programs and a menu of offerings there. And then to our 2 esteemed partners who have successfully gone through the tennis venue services process and received financial support as well as really valuable technical support. We have Tony Wiley, the Chief Executive Officer for Sportsman's Tennis and Enrichment Center. If you haven't seen it, I really encourage you to check it out. It's a beautiful facility in Dorchester. And she's also a UST New England board member, which we have a few on this call, so thank you for joining. And then last but not least, we have Melissa Batiste, who's the Director of Recreation and Community Programs for the town of Lexington, Massachusetts, and has also successfully gone through the tennis venue services process and just been a great partner in celebrating the new courts at Gallagher and just continuing to make sure they're well programmed and maximized by the community. So you'll hear from all 4 of them today, and just appreciate their time and sharing their insights with you. Lauren, if you can go back to the second slide. Before we get into the technical details, I really just want to take a moment to celebrate that tennis is booming. In a later slide, you'll see some national numbers. Tennis has really had another record year of success. Here in New England, we've reached over 1.1 million participants playing tennis, which is a significant rise from just under 750,000 in 2019, and achieving annual growth of around 9%, which outpaces our national post-pandemic trends, which I'm happy to see. Tennis is very healthy here in New England. And we have 8% of our region's population playing tennis here in New England, ranking us among the top 7 sections across the country. So that is a testament to many of you in this room who make sure people are getting out on the courts and staying connected with the game. Speaking of staying connected with the game, we saw our retention increase significantly. We have 82% of our players staying engaged with the sport, which again surpasses national retention rates of 79%. I think this is something to be proud of, especially given the seasonality challenges that we face here in New England, and that a good chunk of our season is playing indoors. And you can go to the next slide, Lauren. Here you can see, as I mentioned, this health and growth is not just happening here in New England, it's happening across the country. We have over 25.7 million people playing tennis across the country, largest of all of the racket sports. And just we're really excited to continue to see year over year growth. And our goal is as a country to get to 35 by 35. And we hope that investments in our facility infrastructure help get us there. And then last but not least, we really think it's really important for us to highlight not only is our sport growing, but it's becoming more inclusive. These are national numbers, but we're also seeing incremental growth here in New England. Over the last 4 years, we've seen our percentage of diverse tennis players here in the US grow by just a little under 8%, and seeing really strong growth amongst our Hispanic, Latino, and Asian Pacific communities. So just really glad to celebrate that the hard work of our tennis community, our partners, our section and national office are really making tennis more inclusive. And now, without further ado, I am going to pass it to Lauren Parr.
Thank you so much, Lindsay. Thank you for having me, Lindsay and Sarah. We're so lucky to have a wonderful partnership with our New England section. Your section office does a wonderful job and goes above and beyond to make sure that all of you are connected with local grant opportunities as well that can be layered on top of our tennis venue services grant offerings. So you really do have that holistic support. And I appreciate being able to have the time to share our program with you today. But you're going to be hearing from the best of the best in a little bit in Tony and Melissa. So our team provides the resources, but they really are the true champions in putting those resources into action. So I'm excited for you to hear from them in a bit. So looking at this slide, it is the 20th year anniversary of our program. It's grown a lot over those 20 years. And 2025 has brought our most significant changes and some exciting updates that we'll be talking about. And as you can see here, we are, we started as a technical grant, but we've over the years also layered on business consulting and advocacy support to get your construction project kicked off. The most exciting slides, I think, for everyone is typically our grant funding assistance. We'll dig into each one of these service offerings in a little bit more in the coming slides. But I just want to make sure that everyone knows up front that all of the services you're going to hear about are complimentary. We're incredibly blessed to have great financial support from our board of directors who help us to drive funding down to the grassroots level. Okay, so this image here gives you a little bit of background on the makeup of who the tennis venue services team is. On our national staff, we have 2 managers, Amelia Storer and myself. Hector Gonzalez is our coordinator, and Todd Carlson, who I'm sure many on this call know, is the department director. We're also excited to be adding another coordinator, Kayla Howard, to our team soon in April. We've gotten a big influx in projects with the recent grant announcements in 2025. So she's going to be an awesome resource to help us with processing all of our new projects. We also have 6 project manager consultants. One of them is more focused on the advocacy efforts, another on collegiate projects, and then 4 consultants that help our clients get through our grant program. And in the New England section, Heather Blythe is your consultant. She's been working with us for 15 of the past 20 years of the program, and you could not have a better advocate in your corner than Heather. She's so detail-oriented, and she will make sure that your project gets the support that it needs as quickly as possible. We also have consultants with decades of experience in the racket sports industry to assist with business services, and 2 engineering firms, along with a designer that will help with the concepts and renderings for the technical support. And we're not going to spend time today digging into our parks, public parks tennis assessment program, but we also have partners in that space with over 25 years of experience at senior leadership levels within Parks and Rec and schools. All right, so we'll go ahead and dive into our technical support. So this is the challenge that we often see, right? So maybe it'll speak to you a bit. Typically, when we have clients come forward for our support, especially in building a new tennis facility, it's going to be a once in a career opportunity for them. This isn't something that most of our clients are doing on a day-to-day basis, right? So our team at its inception 20 years ago was here to bridge that gap. Just in 2025 to date, we've received over 325 inquiries. Typically, we get around 800 a year, but all of the changes that have been announced, we kind of have escalated that a bit. So that's 325 people that maybe they've done facility improvement work in the past. The large majority, I'm going to say, have not. It's something our team lives and breathes every day, and we're happy to help bridge this gap for you. So our technical team can assist with creating 2D concept drawings. This will help you lay out what could be feasible with your facility given land constraints that you might face. It's a great starting point to kick off a new construction project. It is also helpful when you're going to be adding courts to your site. And then for the larger public projects that require a significant amount of fundraising, we also can help support with 3D renderings, which is really helpful in the fundraising and advocacy space. The technical team can support with reviewing your requests for production proposals, RFPs, and that's typically for the public projects that need to go out to bid. And this will help really refine the scope of work in the RFP so that the estimates that you're getting back are comparable. We can review the estimates and construction documents against industry standard, and this will protect your investment and make any recommendations to get your project up to those standards. The USTA doesn't recommend any one manufacturer or court contractor over another, but we're always happy to share with you the long list of manufacturers and vendors that our clients have worked with in your particular section and area. So again, if this is something that you've never done before, you may not even know where to start looking for the people to help and support you in getting your project off the ground. And we're happy to kind of give you some contact information of vendors and push out your RFPs as well to those contractors and vendors that we work with often. So our team loves a before and after photo. Here's one with George Ward Tennis Center. These courts needed some resurfacing work. And there you go, some beautifully resurfaced courts. You can see they have blended 60-foot tennis lines on them. And just one more because we love a good glow up. So this is the Bayview Middle School before. It's pretty intense crack, right? It has some grass through it, even though it's not a grass court. And there you go, very pretty after photos. So this slide is going to show you an example of a 2D concept that our team helped put together for a public tennis center. They're adding 28 clay courts to the facility along with indoor tennis courts. So our team had the challenge to work with the city planners to create this. They needed some assistance for the best way to lay out the courts, because as you can see, there's a dry stream that was running directly through the site. So the desire was to ensure that they could add the courts that they needed while still making sure it felt like a cohesive tennis center. And finally, this is a larger scale new construction project that's still in the fundraising stage. And our team assisted with creating a 3D rendering. You can see it incorporates a playground and a lot of space for spectators and visitors to enjoy the site. And we're still working with the developer to make this particular project come to life. Right. So now we come to our business services. After we've locked down our technical support, the team in the last 5 years or so also wanted to add this level of service on to ensure that our clients have a business model that is sustainable over time. It's great to build a brand new state-of-the-art facility, but we also want to help our clients ensure the financial health of their business. So we'll really help and meet our clients where they're at if their park and rec courts and the municipality just wants to break even, we'll work with them to make sure they can get their budget as zeroed out as possible. And then for profit entities, we have consultants that can help with getting more revenue production in the market as possible. Again, we can review RFPs in the business space as well. If you're looking for a concessionaire to take over management and programming, the team can ensure the language in your RFP is getting you equivalent bids. And then finally, we can support in offsetting a portion of the costs to obtain any economic impact or feasibility studies done on those larger projects. The cost for those types of reporting is a bit more significant. So we're happy to help in supporting a portion of those costs. All right. So coming to the advocacy support, this is where our team is going to package bits and pieces of the business and technical support to help our clients advocate locally for their project. From a facilities perspective, if you're looking to advocate to build a facility or construct one to get courts back online, you can package those technical and business tools that we've just gone over, and then also share your partnership with USTA National and USTA New England to help you sell your project. And a fun tool that we like to use, and we use this in the parks tennis assessment space as well, is just really incorporating data-driven decisions, right? So we can support with that data. And Lindsay mentioned this at the top of the webinar. Tennis has grown for 5 straight years and 2 million in growth alone from last year. So we're going to need more tennis courts to be able to keep up with demand. And so through our partners with Connecticut, we're able to run catchment reports, and they combine 3 main types of data to give you a localized report for a defined geographic area or a drive time radius. So a lot of times when I pull these reports, I'll want to understand Thursday at 4:30 p.m. with a 20-minute drive time, right? I'm a mom of 2, so that's kind of what might be reasonable for me, maybe 5:30 p.m. Where are the tennis centers around me, and what does my area look like? So it's usually using public available data sets in the US Census, in the CDC health data, along with our USTA data around members, coaches, leagues, and tournaments. And then finally, Connecticut's proprietary data that combines research and predictive models to predict sports and recreation behavior. So the catchments reports have been a valuable tool for our clients to help tell the story of tennis. You can identify areas that are underserved by courts for the demand. It's really impressive, and our data team is continuing to iterate to make these more valuable as we get feedback from the marketplace. So I know Sarah and Lindsay have set up a request form for those that might be interested in learning more about this opportunity, and I'm sure they're going to be sharing that after the call. We'll open up for Q&A too, so if anybody has more questions about this later, we can dig into that. But I don't want to hold up because I know this is everybody's favorite part, right? So it doesn't need much of an introduction. I think everybody appreciates financial assistance. So we're going to get into my favorite part. So for anybody on the call that's familiar with our previous funding model, you'll notice that these amounts are a significant enhancement from what we have been able to provide in the past. So our biggest grant in 2024 was a $55,000 grant, and we could get up to $70,000 if it was an indoor facility. So you'll see here our biggest grant now is $200,000. So it's a pretty big deal for us. When we are looking at all 3 of the categories, I should note that your grant will max out at 50% of your cost of project. And if we start in category 1, this is really focused around fixed court amenities. So those projects are up to a total of $5,000, but we've also added 2 grants under category 1 that can be layered with a category 2 grant. This is also a big departure. Typically in the past, you could only go for one category of grant, one grant within the category. So tennis court tech that's looking at scoreboards and streaming access, and then inclusive access, which is focused on supporting improvements such as expanding gates and adding pathways for wheelchair accessibility. Those are up to $10,000. And again, those can be layered with like a resurfacing grant, because when you're doing that type of work, it's just best to get it all done at the same time if you can. So we're really excited to offer that opportunity this year. And then moving on to category 2 projects, all of those are eligible for up to $60,000 or 50% of your cost of project. Lighting is evaluated at $15,000 per court, fencing at $12,000 per court, and resurfacing at $8,000 per court. And then I also just want to add that if you are resurfacing tennis courts and you're a park or a school, you're also eligible to get an additional $2,000 in grant funding in honor of Coco Golf's US Open win through the US Open Legacy Initiative. And that's something that we just add automatically on our end. It's not something that you have to specifically call out, but it's just good to know that that $2,000 is available. And then finally, when we look at category 3 grants, these projects are eligible for up to $200,000 or up to 50% of the cost of project. And then reconstruction starts at $20,000 per court, new construction at $35,000 per court, and indoor structures at $50,000 per court. So for indoor structures, we've gotten some questions around that. That's really the new construction of an indoor tennis center, maybe the addition of a roof or a bubble over existing tennis courts, or the replacement of that roof or structure. Which is really exciting that we had a call out to support indoor courts previously, but it wasn't as defined. So we really tried to make sure that our support was clear upfront so that everybody knew what they could be expecting as they're starting to plan their projects. So sorry, I've been talking a lot. I'll pause here. Any questions? Because this is the slide that gets a lot of questions. And you can always throw them in the chat as well. And I know there'll be a time for Q&A in a bit. Okay. So my last slide for us today, I just want to give you some insight into our process. Again, for those that have gone through our process in the past, you might remember that all 3 categories had to go through a technical review. So it looked a little bit like this. You would inquire. We'd ask for a ton of documents, no matter if you were Cat 1, Cat 2, or Cat 3. And our engineering team would go back and forth with you, which would take a bit, to make sure that your project was going to meet industry standards. So now that we have $10 million in total funding this year to give out. That's an increase from $1.2 million last year. And our charge from the board is to ensure our clients are serviced faster and we can get that money out in 2025. So for those lower complexity projects and mid-complexity projects in category 1 and 2, when you submit an inquiry to our inquiry form, our project manager is going to reach out with the application. So you don't have to go through the technical review process that you've had to go through in the past. You'll get the funding application up front, and it'll ask you for some photos of the courts and your bids and estimates, and then we'll be able to make an award decision. So it really is, we're seeing a lot of awards already start to come through, even though we just launched these new parameters February 1st. Now for the category 3 projects, there is still that technical review process, but after the first review, our engineer will get on the phone with your construction team and they can talk through any questions that our team has. And really the goal in a technical review is to protect your investment. You're spending a significant amount of dollars and you want the courts to be built to standards and to sustain over time. You don't want to keep putting more money into them, you know, unless it's the regular maintenance that would be to be expected. So that's really why on those more complex projects that we're still having the projects go through the technical review process, and then you would get an application that would be reviewed for an award. Now, There are clients of ours, you'll hear from Tony in a bit. I think she'll tell you that she found a lot of value in our technical review. So if you have a resurfacing project or a fencing project and you want our engineers to look at everything, we can still do that. We're not taking that off the table. We're just making it an optional step. So I hope that helps. And I think that we are moving faster, but I'm still happy that we have the option to provide support when our clients would like to see it. So I've said a lot, and I want to make sure we can get to Tony and Melissa, but just wanted to share that our inquiry form can be found at USTA.com/facilities. I'll make sure Sarah gets that to everyone after the call. We also can be reached at facilities@USTA.com. And you're always welcome to reach out. I man that email box, so it's me that's responding to you. And again, Heather and I will make sure that you are well taken care of, and I'm happy to answer any questions at the end of the webinar. So I'm going to go ahead and I think hand it back over to Lindsay.
I think I'll actually hop in, Lauren. Thank you.
Perfect.
I do see a couple good questions coming in, so I'm going to
Perfect.
answer maybe 3 of those right now.
Okay.
So the first one being Samantha from Lancaster is asking how the category is determined. And you did have that great chart that showed the 3 categories, but I'll go ahead and expand that to also include if you are not sure if your courts are needing a resurface or a reconstruction. Can you talk us through a little bit of how the category gets determined?
Absolutely. And I will share our one pager because it has really nice descriptions on it to help guide that. But I mean, even for us, so we're not visiting the site in person and we're evaluating based off of photos, but we instruct our clients, have a court contractor go out and give you an estimate. Have 2 go out and give you estimates, and they'll be able to identify, you know, if it's a resurfacing, or is the cracking extensive enough that you need a crack repair system? Or is it just cracking is just, it's too extensive for a crack repair system and you really just need to reconstruct your courts. They'll also be able to help identify if there's significant drainage issues that's causing problems that's, you know, warranting the work to the courts. That's something that we'll have to incorporate as well. So we can get eyeballs on your courts through the photos and give recommendations, but ultimately we want to see a professional go out there and see what they're recommending is the best course.
That's great. Thank you. And then I have 2 related to eligibility
Okay.
for the grant. The first being multi-purpose courts. Can you talk to us about what is eligible there, especially if courts have pickleball lines?
Yes, that's a great question. So our team is only able to provide grant funding support towards tennis courts that have tennis only lines on it, right? So 78-foot court with 60 or 36-foot lines. For grant funding of the determination, let's say you have a 6-court bank and one of those courts has pickleball lines, then in our eyes, when we're calculating that court count, we consider that a 5-court project. So we just remove the court with pickleball lines from the court count for grant funding, but we're still going to provide all of our services in a technical review if that's what you're interested in having us support with, even though the court does have pickleball lines. And then if all the courts have pickleball lines on it, then they wouldn't be eligible at this time for funding support, but we still want to provide consultative services. And there's a lot of value in having our team of engineers review your construction documents and give some recommendations. So I hope that helps answer that question.
That's great. Thank you. I have one more and then we'll move to Tony and Melissa. So
Sure.
In terms of private clubs or what types of facilities are eligible for this, can you talk about the clubs needing to have some portion open to the public?
Absolutely. It's a great question. So our definition of open to the public, we've tried to be as inclusive as possible. We want to be able to help as many facilities as we can. So at least one program, there needs to be something like a cardio class, some clinic or program that is open to outsiders to join. So it wouldn't be considered if it's just a member pass for a country club. But if I, Lauren Parr, can call the facility and say, I would love to join your 9 a.m. cardio class, then that would be eligible for grant consideration. There may be some, you know, if financial assistance truly isn't needed for that facility, it would be looked at. But for the most part, if you have something that's open to the public, our team is happy to support.
That's very helpful. Thank you so much. Okay, and now I'm going to move on to Tony and Melissa. Feel free to keep putting your questions in the chat. We will do our best to get to everything today, and we'll also follow up with an FAQ document. So if you missed any of these answers or wanted to revisit what we said in addition to the recording, we will do an FAQ document. So it's my pleasure to introduce our two fantastic speakers. As Lindsay and Lauren both highlighted at the top, they have been through this process. We thought it would be very helpful for everyone on the call to hear from them. So I'm going to start with Tony. As you heard, she's the CEO of Sportsman's Tennis and Enrichment Center in Dorchester, Massachusetts. Tony is not only a leader at Sportsman's, she's a leader in our section and nationally. She's such a great advocate for tennis. So Tony, as it relates to tennis venue services, can you talk about the scope of your latest project at Sportsman's? Oh, and you're still on mute, Tony.
Sorry about that, folks. So I have, as you say, I've had the pleasure of working with tennis venue services a couple of times. And most recently, this is the largest project that Sportsman's has done since the facility was built. We put up a new facility, as you can see there, to enclose what had previously been 4 outdoor courts. And we had a number of changes. We are very constrained by our lease lines, and TVS was able to give us recommendations, but at the same time recognize that we couldn't actually meet all of them. So it was great to hear what they would suggest, but it was also great to realize that if we came back and said, because of the fence line or because of other constrictions, we can't do that, and they were able to help with that. We also put in lighting on the 3 remaining outdoor courts, and we are right next to a housing complex. So it was helpful that they were able to help us identify how best to install the lighting to make sure we had the maximum effect that we needed on the court, but that we limited the community issues. And so we had to raise over $5 million for this project. And we were always careful to note that we had both financial support and technical assistance from the USTA. And that really goes a long way. It's very simple. We send in our plans. They complete their technical review. They send the plans back to us with their questions in red, and we simply send our responses back, and we go back and forth until we have all the answers. And I often say to people that are afraid of this process or feel like it's a lot of work, that if you don't know the answers to the questions they're asking, you're definitely in the right place, because you need to know this. And I'll just close by saying I joked at our gala that I was in the process of putting this tiny bathroom in my tiny house, and the process was nearly killing me. And yet here was the board trusting me to oversee this project. It worked well for us because we put together a volunteer committee. We went through our tennis players, our tennis community, and we looked at the skill set that was there among our players. And we identified a retired architect, a developer, someone who had his own HVAC company. And we put together a committee that met weekly and went through the plans. We had a paid owner's rep, but he volunteered on the weekly call. So his hours that he would bill us for didn't include the fact that we had a call every Wednesday morning for 4 years to go through this project. And then, of course, we had the support of tennis venue services. So we had the court construction book that they provide. We provided that to our volunteer members. We even shared some of that with our architects and our engineers, because as good as they were, they had never necessarily put up a tennis court or a tennis court building. So I'll stop there and see if there are any questions, but certainly for us, we've had a great experience working with tennis venue services.
That's so helpful, Tony. I love that you tapped into so many other people and built a real team on your side and leveraging the national office. That seems key. I know we had received a question earlier around working with the city, and you're in the city of Boston. That is by far the largest city in our section. So others may be dealing with this on a smaller scale, but any takeaways or things you learned given this project and the others you've done previously when it comes to working with a city and permitting and all of that?
Start as early as you possibly can. Make a relationship with someone in your Parks and Rec office or whoever it is that you need to deal with. Start a relationship with them early. Explain what you're looking to do, even if it's just a pie in the sky dream. A couple of years down the road, they will let you know right away what your concerns should be. For us, even though we own our building, we sit on land that is owned by the city of Boston and managed by Boston Parks and Recreation. I mentioned that we're right next door to a housing authority. So unbeknownst to us, there were some of the times where we had to get permission from the Boston Housing Authority for access. So if we hadn't known that before we went in, it would have been a surprise that was really problematic for us. We sit on land that at one point the city had gotten a Land Water Conservation Fund grant for. And that grant, which even though it didn't benefit us at all, it put restrictions on what we were able to do, and it required us to get federal approval before we could enclose any open space. So these are things that you have to know going into it, and the only way to find out is to establish a relationship, establish a contact, let them know what you want to do, and just ask as many questions as you can. It was a detailed process for us. We had to keep getting these access agreements to allow heavy trucks to enter the park before they could enter our parking lot. They've got to come through the park, even though it's only, a couple hundred yards. It required us to get an access agreement signed by the city, and these things take a long time. They're legal documents. So we even had to go to the Mass Historical Commission to prove that we weren't building on some place where there could be burial grounds or what have you. And even though it seems obvious because it's already been done, there's already courts there, there are already other facilities there, these things took months to do. And so you just have to start early.
That's really helpful. Thank you for sharing all of that, Tony. You've really been a pioneer partnering in the community and with the city and all the key stakeholders. I think that's a really important takeaway for everyone. So thank you for sharing that. I'm going to move to Melissa, but as Tony said, keep typing questions in the chat as you have them, and we're happy to help answer whatever we can. So Melissa is our Director of Parks and Recreation for Lexington, Massachusetts, another wonderful advocate for tennis. She is such a great example of a partnership that we have at the section with the Park and Rec Department, and how we can work together to support them in any way we can to grow tennis in their community. So Melissa, similarly, can you tell us about the scope of your latest project with Gallagher?
Sure. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. And Tony, I'm going to have to come visit. I live in the city and have never been there, so I'm really excited to come check out your facility. So here in Lexington, we have 17 courts. This project represented our largest tennis facility, which has 10 courts on one site. So coupling that, taking 10 courts off site for an entire season, the impact is very large, as well as coming off the heels of a community needs assessment where our community was above the national average for tennis play. So it was a big community impact for the players, the high school teams, the youth, the lessons, our camps. So there was a lot of pre-planning that had to go into this just to prepare for the construction. We have a 5-year capital plan for the replacement of end-of-life facilities. Prior to the 2023 construction season, when this project was took place, we had a smaller project where we were completing some athletic lighting on the park. This is a 55-acre park. The high school sits on one side and the rest of it is parks and open space. So it's very tight. You can see in the photo that we have our 6-lane track and field there, and beyond we have our outdoor swimming pool. So there's not a lot of room to maneuver, and our neighbors, the abutters, are very close right along that tree line. So our first project was of the 10 courts, we had 4 courts that had lighting that was installed probably 30 plus years ago. So we replaced the 4 courts and added the other 6. So all 10 courts were lit, and we received a small support from USTA for $10,000 back in 2019. And that was pretty straightforward. It was an extension of existing lighting. So moving forward to this project, we were looking at a $2.2 million project, complete reconstruction. We went from asphalt to post-tension concrete courts. We improved the connectivity around the courts, replaced all of the fencing, the signage, the gates. We put 2 brand new practice boards in on the far end, a shade shelter. So it was a pretty comprehensive project, especially coming off the heels of the pandemic, when the parks use in general, whether it was active or passive, have completely increased, which has been great because we've built a larger advocacy group for our parks and recreation spaces and amenities. Some of the things that I would recommend is if you're new to USTA or if you're interested in the funding, is really to begin with those relationships that Tony mentioned. It's one thing to be a member of an organization, but it's really important to be an active member by participating in these webinars, or when you go to the conferences and talk to somebody at your booth for, whether it's sectional or national. But understanding those relationships is really helpful because now Sarah knows our community. She knows what our lessons look like. She knows what our demographics look like. She knows our process in terms of how the politics work and the budgeting and our timing and all of the different steps for approval. I will echo what Tony said, is having that check off that USTA has approved this and saying that we're meeting national standards and we're meeting best practices goes a long way in communities, and especially in a community like Lexington, where they always want the best of the best. So that has really helped us along the way. The courts came out beautiful. This photo is a drone shot of several of the courts. And on the right-hand side, you'll see that photo there is our ribbon cutting. And ironically, the National Park and Rec Conference, the previous season, the USTA had a booth there, and they had this extra large, enormous tennis racket. And I said, I need that tennis racket at our ribbon cutting next year. And it actually worked out great once we received the funding. The Tennis Venue Services handled all of the public relations. They put some marketing toolkits together. They reached beyond your local media and they sent it out to the greater Boston area. We were able to get board members from the New England USTA board to come down and speak. And it just really adds the value and raises the value of the entire experience, because any construction project is going to have growing pains, whether it's to the user group or to the construction company or the budget. But at the end result, it's so important to celebrate. And without those relationships, it would have been hard to get that extra large tennis racket there, or to have some of the board members from New England USTA come and speak on behalf of the program, and be able to share their pride about how this really is impacting communities at a local level. So I would say, really just jump in and take advantage of their work and support. Heather was unbelievable in terms of when you talk about paying attention to detail, sending things back, leaving no stone unturned. So it was really just such a valuable insight that helped our landscape civil engineers and our construction companies in terms of when we had a question about the lines or the location and colors and things that we wanted to do. We have 6 of our 10 courts have the intro to play, the junior lines on them as well. So a lot to consider, and their resource, it was invaluable to us. And we continue now to be able to take, be granted other funds because they know our courts are meeting their standards. So in the last 2 years, we've received grants for adaptive tennis. We've received tennis in the park grants. So there's different things that domino effect when USTA knows what your facility is like and that you've met these standards, to then invest in the programming and the coaches trainings and all of the other wonderful grant opportunities outside of facilities.
That's so helpful. Thank you, Melissa. I know when we talked yesterday, I love that you said engage USTA early and often. We are here to help you. I love that you talked about a community needs assessment and advocacy, which I see being mentioned in the chat too. Lindsay started with all those stats at the beginning and all that data. We can help you show the interest and the demand for tennis nationally in New England, and walk you through if you need help getting that from your community, so we can help, again, advocate to make sure you have the courts that you need in town. I do see that question come in from Belfast. We'd be happy to take that offline with you. It sounds like there's some things we could talk through specific to that situation. I do have one more slide that I want to cover. Once you have your courts redone, hopefully, we would love to help you with programming. So our USTA New England staff, if you can go to the next slide, Lauren, is here to support you with that. We start at the very grassroots level with schools, and we provide free training to PE teachers. What better way to build tennis in your community than exposing all the youth in the schools in your area to tennis? Those kids can try tennis in gym class, and then they'll be looking for it in your park and rec department at your facility, so we can help you with that. If you need help similarly with on the park and rec side to expand that pool of tennis players in your community, we offer a wonderful program called Tennis in the Parks, which is a beginner program for youth and adults. I know many of our clubs and facilities on the call partner with their local park and rec to run programming, which is fantastic too. And then all the way through the pathway, as we like to call it, junior team tennis, tournaments for youth and adults, social play, adult leagues. If you don't already work with us on any programming, we'd be happy to talk through some options with you and what might work in your community at your facility. Or if you do some programming with us and would like to expand, we'd be happy to connect you with the right staff member on our team. We also offer coach workshops. We're gearing up. We're in the middle of high school coach workshops right now and gearing up for more in the spring as our outdoor season approaches. And then programming grants. You haven't heard about our Community Champions grant, we can link that in our notes afterwards. And then our state associations also offer grants to help you with programming because, like we said, want to keep these courts full once you have them redone. So yes, I think that is all we have. Like I said, we can take some of these. If you have some, intricate questions around your specific project, we'd be happy to take those offline because I do want to be mindful of time that we're couple minutes over our block. So we would be happy to chat with you offline. Please look for the recording and all of the FAQs and staff contacts after. I think Lauren also has a slide with some QR codes that scan to some of our resources as well. We really appreciate your time. I know it's always a busy time of year. We look forward to working with you and helping you take advantage of these great resources for your facilities. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Lindsay.
Thanks, everybody.